It started on a Tuesday. The sky changed first over every capital, every continent. It darkened as if twilight had arrived too soon. Then came the shapes, massive, silent, impossibly smooth vessels that hovered without propulsion or sound. They didn't shoot. They didn't speak. They simply appeared, casting shadows over skyscrapers and farms alike. People looked up and stopped what they were doing. Teachers canceled classes. Stock markets froze. And for the first time in a century, the whole world held its breath together. Captain Alan Wright had just finished his sandwich when the call came through. A quiet burr of vibration against the tray table broke the silence of his leave. He sighed and answered it. "Captain Wright," said the voice on the other end, urgent and clipped. "You need to come in, now." "I'm on leave," Alan replied, already standing, already reaching for his jacket. The voice hadn't needed to ask twice. Not anymore. "The president wants you at the UN building. There's a plane waiting." 4 hours later, Alan sat in a wide gray room inside the United Nations headquarters, surrounded by the leaders of every major nation. Generals, premiers, intelligence directors. Nobody was talking. Not really. There was a weight in the air, heavier than protocol or rank, something ancient, primal. The sense that everything had just changed, and the world was waiting to find out if it was for better or worse. The doors opened. The aliens walked in. They looked almost human. That was the first and most unnerving part. 2 legs, 2 arms, symmetrical. Faces, but their skin was a pale, pearlescent blue, and their eyes, enormous, unblinking, seemed to shimmer with internal light. They wore robes that whispered with every step, as if made from liquid glass. The tallest stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Zikatar of the Vidian Collective," he said, his voice harmonic and slightly dissonant, like music played just off-key. "We represent the Galactic Council, a union of 327 advanced civilizations. Number 1 moved. We have monitored your species for some time," Zikatar continued, "and have determined that contact is now necessary. You have begun to touch the stars. It is the Council's duty to guide emerging civilizations, offer limited access to galactic systems. In exchange for your cooperation." The president leaned forward slightly. "What exactly do you mean by guidance?" "You will be granted observer status on the Council," Zikatar replied. "Limited trading rights. Carefully monitored access to designated technologies. In time, should your species demonstrate maturity and restraint, these privileges may expand." "And if we want more than observer status?" asked the Chinese premier. Zikatar's head tilted. "That is not possible. Your species is still unpredictable, too violent. This is for your protection and the galaxy's." Alan's hands were clenched under the table. The rest of the meeting was a show. Videos of radiant cities floating above alien landscapes. Ships slicing through space like light through water. Cures for disease. Longevity treatments. Peace. But behind every offering was a lock. The Council would not share propulsion. They would not share energy. They would not allow humans to colonize beyond the moon. The gifts were illusions, treats dangled behind glass. At the end, Zikatar smiled, or something like a smile. "We will return in 1 month for your answer. We expect you will see the wisdom in accepting our protection." They left. Silence followed them out. For minutes, the room held its collective breath. Alan finally spoke. "Protection," he said, the word sharp. "That wasn't an offer. That was a leash." All eyes turned to him. "They think we're too dangerous to be trusted with the stars," he added. "And maybe we are, but I've seen this kind of guidance before. It always ends the same way." Later that night, as most of the world debated and postured on news broadcasts and emergency summits, Alan received a second call. This one encrypted, from an old connection. A woman's voice, familiar and sharp. Captain Wright. "This is Dr. Samantha Foster. I need you to come to Antarctica, now." "What is this?" he asked. She paused. "It's not over. Not yet." And the line went dead. The cold in Antarctica didn't bite. It devoured. Captain Alan Wright stood on the icy platform as the wind howled like a living thing, tearing at his coat and trying to steal the breath from his lungs. A military transport had dropped him at a location not marked on any map, where the ice looked the same in every direction, an endless field of white silence. But beneath his boots, under hundreds of meters of ancient ice, the future was waiting. A figure emerged from the howling snow. She walked with purpose, ignoring the storm like it wasn't even there. Her red hair, tied tightly, whipped behind her like a signal flare. Alan recognized her before she even spoke. "Dr. Samantha Foster," he said. "Captain Wright." She didn't smile. There was no warmth in her eyes, only focus. "Follow me." They descended in silence. The elevator plunged through layers of reinforced steel and ancient frozen earth until it opened into a chamber that defied imagination. Alan stepped into a world that should not have existed, vast and alive, humming with quiet energy. Scientists and engineers worked around the clock, surrounded by consoles and walls that flickered with holograms and alien symbols. In the center of the cavern, suspended above the floor, was a ship. It was the size of a destroyer, matte black, its surface curved and predatory. Not a single straight edge marred its body, only flowing arcs and glowing seams that pulsed with life. It looked less like a machine and more like something grown in darkness. Alan stared. "That's not human." "No," Samantha said. "But it's ours now." They walked along a catwalk overlooking the ship's spine. "When the council came," she said, "we let them land. We let them speak. But we also listened. We tracked every frequency they used, every material they brought into orbit, every gravity signature their engines left behind. They were arrogant. They didn't think we were watching." Alan nodded slowly. "And you built this." "We rebuilt it," Samantha corrected. "From what little they left behind. From what we stole. Some of it we guessed. Some of it answered back. We found pieces of old tech in their waste, their jettisoned garbage. But some of it still held memory. Echoes of the civilizations they've silenced. Not all those voices were dead." Alan took a step closer to the ship. It seemed to respond. Its hull shimmered faintly as if acknowledging his presence. "What's it called?" "The ISV Defiant," Samantha said. "Interstellar vessel. First and only ship of Project Horizon." Alan ran his hand along the hull. It was warm, not like metal. "Like skin. You're asking me to fly it?" "I'm telling you that you're the only one who can," she said. "You spoke up. You saw the leash they tried to put on us. Everyone else is playing along, smiling for the cameras. But we know what's coming." Alan looked back at her. "What is coming?" "Control," she said. "The kind that wears a friendly mask. If we accept their offer, we'll be monitored, limited, watched, for centuries. They'll strangle our future and tell us it's for our own good. And this ship? It's our only way out." The days that followed were a blur of motion and urgency. Alan met the crew, 100 handpicked men and women from across the globe. Pilots, linguists, engineers, tacticians, cybernetics experts, alien linguists, even a few former criminals whose talents had been deemed too useful to ignore. They trained in secret under the ice. They learned how to operate systems with no buttons, how to interpret glowing matrices that required intent rather than input. Some systems didn't respond unless the user wanted something hard enough. It scared them. It thrilled them. 6 months passed in silence. Above ground, the world debated and eventually accepted the Council's offer. observer status, trade partnerships, carefully rationed access to tech. Earth's government smiled for the cameras, while their satellites were dismantled and their ambitions shackled. But under the ice, something else was being born. On launch day, the air inside the facility felt like static. Alan sat in the captain's chair, his fingers wrapped tightly around the armrests. Samantha stood behind him, watching systems stabilize. "All systems green," she said. "She's ready." The ice above them began to split apart like a cracked mirror. Sunlight poured through the widening gap. Beyond the rift, the blue sky waited, and beyond that, the stars. Alan spoke calmly. "Take us up." The Defiant rose in perfect silence. There was no rumble of engines, no roar of thrust. Just movement, smooth, deliberate, invisible to all who weren't watching for it. The launch left no signature, no heat plume, no trail for the Council sensors to detect. By the time the Defiant left Earth's atmosphere, it had already entered deep space mode. Its engines folded light. Its body bent shadows. And then, with a soundless ripple, the ship vanished into the void. Far across the galaxy, in the luminous halls of the Galactic Council, an aide stepped into Ambassador Zikatar's chamber. Trembling. "Ambassador," the aide said, voice thin, "we have ... detected a launch." Zikatar's eyes narrowed. "From Earth?" "Yes, sir. A single vessel." The ambassador blinked slowly, the internal glow of his eyes pulsing with curiosity. "One ship?" The room was silent for a moment. Then Zikatar exhaled a musical, dissonant note that passed for laughter. "What can one human ship possibly do?" He would soon find out. The stars were different out here, older, colder, and farther from the influence of anything the Galactic Council dared to map. The ISV Defiant drifted in the darkness beyond Council-monitored space, her black hull nearly indistinguishable from the void itself. To the untrained eye, she didn't exist. To those trained enough to look, she looked like a ghost. Alan Wright stood on the bridge, arms folded behind his back, his eyes locked on the sweeping galaxy beyond the forward viewport. It had been 11 months since they left Earth, and they had crossed into territories marked on no star chart. Here, in the quiet between known civilizations, the Council's hand could not reach, or so they hoped. "We're detecting a planetary." "System up ahead," said Lieutenant Greg Adams, breaking the silence. "Life signs, energy signatures, no orbital defenses." Alan turned toward him. "How advanced?" Greg hesitated. "Advanced, but caged." Catherine Daniels, the ship's science officer, leaned forward at her station. Her short black hair was a mess from sleepless days. "It's odd, sir. This civilization has maglev systems running between cities, sustainable atmospheric controls, and global-scale communication networks, but there's zero evidence of spaceflight. No satellites, no stations, no launch complexes. There." "Being held down," Samantha Foster muttered from her console. Her hands moved quickly as she ran diagnostics through the alien inherited systems. "This is the third system like this. Different species, different biology, same outcome. All brilliant, all grounded." Alan stared at the glowing planet slowly growing in the viewfinder. "Put us into a high orbit. Let's see who lives here." The Defiant moved like a shadow through the upper atmosphere, cloaking active scans beneath a wave of electromagnetic silence. Within moments, they were hailed. A voice crackled through the bridge unlike any they'd heard before. Musical, harmonious, but it carried weight, and underneath its beauty was a fracture. "I am Zank of the Anthari," the transmission said. "Unknown vessel, how did you bypass the barrier? Who are you?" Alan stepped forward and spoke clearly. "I am Captain Alan Wright of the ISV Defiant from Earth. We didn't know there was a barrier." There was a pause. Static shimmered. Like ripples in water. Earth, Zank repeated. That name is not recognized. If you have truly crossed the boundary without council clearance, then perhaps you are the ones we have waited for. That phrase lodged itself in Alan's chest. Within the hour, the Defiant landed on a shimmering, crystalline platform at the edge of the Anthari capital, an alien city built not with metal or stone, but with living crystal that pulsed with color and breath. The Anthari themselves were semi-transparent beings of radiant geometry, humanoid in shape, but filled with glowing veins of blue-white light. Zank, the being they had spoken to, greeted them personally. This world, he said as they walked through a corridor of shifting light, has been confined for 400 of your years. The Galactic Council placed a planetary-level dampening field in orbit. They said it was for our safety. We believed. Them. Alan glanced at Samantha, whose jaw was tight. Why would they keep you grounded? Catherine asked. Zank paused before answering. Because we calculated something they didn't expect. Our species discovered a new way to compute entanglement algorithms that would make their artificial intelligences obsolete. When we attempted to share our findings, they said we were not ready. Then the barrier appeared, without explanation. Containment, Alan said, polished and sterilized. We learned to survive inside our cage, Zank said, his crystalline form flashing with deep violet pulses, but not to escape it, until now. Back aboard the Defiant, Samantha and Catherine worked closely with Anthari engineers. Within 2 days, they merged Anthari light-based computing into the ship's core systems. The interface speed has tripled, Catherine whispered, eyes wide. It's like the ship's thinking with us. But the Council had not been deaf. In deep space, a Council listening station detected the Defiant's energy signature. 2 patrol ships, small but deadly, were dispatched with orders to investigate and, if necessary, silence. They arrived just as the Defiant launched from the Anthari surface. 2 ships incoming, Greg called out. Fast movers, Council. Design, they've got lock. Activate the new shields, Alan ordered. Let's see if the Anthari upgrades are worth the risk. The ship shimmered like heat haze. The first enemy beam struck their hull and passed through without damage. They're miscalculating, Samantha said, astonished. The crystal buffer refracts their energy signatures. Their weapons don't even register us correctly. Alan clenched a fist. Return fire. Aim for engines. We don't kill unless we have to. The battle lasted under 2 minutes. The Defiant danced between enemy fire like it was scripted, each shot surgically disabling key systems. When the smoke cleared, both patrol ships drifted in silence. One limped away, the other dead in space. The Council knows we're here now, Richard. Hayes said grimly. Alan turned to his crew, his voice firm. Let them know, and let everyone else know too. What followed in the next 5 weeks would become known later as the Awakening. The Defiant visited 6 more worlds, all advanced species restrained by the Council's invisible leash. Some were barred by orbital dampeners. Others were regulated through economic control or genetic modification. They met the Lemurans, an amphibious species forced to mine their oceans for Council profits. They freed the Kalir insectoid engineers, who had never been allowed to build beyond their sky. They contacted the Skayan, a race of living gas who once created artificial stars until the Council forbade it. And on each world, the Defiant left something behind, hope, but hope wasn't quiet. Hope had consequences. At Council command on Elar Prime, Ambassador Zikatar stared at the growing list of disturbances. Planets resisting, stations refusing to transmit data, mining operations gone silent, all with one thing in common. Witnesses spoke of a dark ship, a silent shadow, a human voice, This ... Defiant, Zikatar said aloud, the word tasting bitter. We underestimated them. No, sir, said his aide, trembling. We underestimated what they inspire. Zikatar's face turned to the stars. Something ancient stirred in his memory, an echo from the early days of the Council, long before. Control had replaced curiosity. They're not just fighting back, he whispered. They're awakening the galaxy. The stars around the Cygnus crossing pulsed like watchful eyes dance, ancient things packed so close together they almost seemed to whisper. It was a place the Council rarely ventured, not because it was dangerous, but because it reminded them how little they truly controlled. The ISV Defiant floated in that silence, hidden within a cluster of lightless asteroids. Its hull had shifted, again adapted, thanks to a recent upgrade from Miskian, who had shared a new kind of camouflage, one based not on bending light, but removing expectation. To sensors, the Defiant no longer registered as a ship. It was background noise. Captain Alan Wright stood at the central bridge console, eyes narrowed at the slowly rotating map of local space. A blinking red arc cut across the screen, a patrol path. They're tightening the net, said Greg Adams grimly. 3 battle cruisers, direct intercept course. They were waiting for us, Catherine Daniels added, her voice tight. Predictive vectors, acceleration profiles they planned this weeks ago. Alan didn't flinch. Then we give them what they're waiting for. Samantha Foster stepped forward from the engineering pit. Her hair was tied back, her eyes shadowed by long hours. We finished calibrating the Anthari crystal core to the Scoun spatial dampeners. The ship is ready. Alan glanced around the room. These faces, human, alien, hybrid, weren't just crew. They were survivors of betrayal, warriors of principle, dreamers who had built something beautiful in the cracks between tyranny. Bring up visuals. The display flickered and expanded. 3 ships appeared on the screen, Council battle cruisers, each the size of a small city. Their hulls gleamed with mirrored armor, bristling with energy cannons. The lead vessel bore the insignia of the Cellari Directorate, one of the oldest and most brutal Council factions. They're broadcasting, said Richard Hayes. Audio only. Put it through, said Alan. A cold, aristocratic voice filled the bridge. This is Commander Varel of the Cellari Cruiser Indomitable. Human vessel Defiant, you are in violation of Galactic Council law. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in annihilation. Alan stepped forward, folding his hands behind his back. This is Admiral Alan Wright of the ISV Defiant. We claim the right of free passage through all space not claimed by sovereign self-representing systems. There is no such right, Varel snapped. The Council is the sole authority. You do not exist outside it, Alan smiled. Then, you're going to have a hard time explaining what happens next. The channel cut. On the Defiance bridge, the crew moved in harmony. No raised voices. No panic. Just precision. Shields charged, Samantha said. Targeting solutions plotted. Catherine added. Jump core standing by, said the Veil Nomad navigator. Their 6 arms dancing across controls with alien elegance. Outside, the battle cruisers opened fire. Beams of searing energy lashed across space, carving glowing scars into the void. Missiles launched, glowing with antimatter cores, and yet the Defiant remained untouched. The first beam struck and vanished, refracted, diverted. Samantha's new shield lattice, tuned by the Anthori to pulse in nonlinear geometries, wrapped around the ship like a living halo. They're recalibrating, Catherine said, trying to adapt. Alan's jaw clenched. Not fast enough. He pointed. Target their weapon arrays. Minimal force. This isn't about destruction. It's about the message. The Defiant struck. Its weapons didn't roar, they whispered. Precision-laced projectiles fired from crystal-enhanced rails, each one folding through micro-dimensional layers, passing through shields like they weren't there. On the Indomitable, weapons dimmed out. The second cruiser lost engine output. The third tried to retreat only to find itself outflanked. Execute jump, Alan ordered. The ship vanished. It reappeared behind the lead cruiser in an instant. Greg's voice rang out. Their targeting arrays are offline. They can't see us. Alan didn't hesitate. Fire again. In less than 12 minutes, all three cruisers were disabled. No lives lost. No hulls breached beyond recovery. Just 3 ancient juggernauts rendered obsolete by a vessel Earth wasn't even supposed to have, and they weren't done. Multiple Council transmissions detected, Richard said. They're reporting the incident, calling it a malfunction. But the footage is already leaking. Civilian relays, independent observatories. Even some Council sympathizers are starting to question. Alan turned to the main screen and activated a broadcast relay to all ships within range. This is Admiral Alan Wright of the Defiant. We are not invaders. We are not conquerors. We are witnesses. Witnesses to the truth the Council has tried to bury, that their authority is a cage, that their control is not peace, it is stagnation. He leaned forward, and that the time of quiet obedience is over. Across the galaxy, people heard his voice. On mining colonies forced to work without pause. On research stations forbidden to publish discoveries. On peaceful planets told they were too primitive to leave home. And they listened. Far above Council space, in the heart of the Grand Spire, Ambassador Zikatar reviewed the footage in silence. The Defiant, a ship built from stolen dreams and impossible science, had not only survived, it had made their best cruisers look like relics. They didn't destroy them, his aide said softly. They could have, Zikatar nodded slowly. That was the point. What do we do? He didn't answer at first. He walked to the window. Watch the stars. Send for the full Council, he said at last. Tell them the humans have declared their position. And if they ask what kind of threat this represents. Zikatar's eyes glowed dimly. Not a threat, he whispered. A spark. He turned back to the window. In the dark between stars, something new was rising. Not just rebellion, a different kind of order. One ship had changed everything. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had always been a place of silence. The Big Hall of the Galactic Council had always been a place of council, had always been a place of silence. A vaulted chamber suspended in geosynchronous orbit above the glittering core world of LR Prime. The hall was built from obsidian and light, its ceiling stretched impossibly high, arched with flowing sigils of every founding species. Here, for 10,000 years, the Council had convened in orderly calm, passing laws that shaped the fate of countless civilizations. But today, silence was a memory. Delegates shouted over one another, holographic feeds from all corners of Council. Space flickered above their heads, images of disabled cruisers, liberated colonies, strange alien ships flying the human standard beside unknown banners. Footage of the Defiant outmaneuvering the Indomitable played on a loop in the corner of the room. Each replay a dagger to the Council's pride. They defeated 3 battle cruisers with a single ship. Screamed the Solari representative, his golden skin flushed red with fury. What else do you need? Earth must be eradicated now. Eradicated? Spathian Ferry delegate, crystalline limbs glowing in outrage. The humans did not destroy your ships. They disabled them. Efficiently. Human restraint was not weakness, it was a message. A message that the Council no longer controls. Its own order, shouted another. Enough, bellowed the head counselor, his radiant energy form flaring with pulsating heat. This disorder is beneath the legacy of this body. We have ruled with wisdom for millennia. We cannot be undone by a primitive species and their pet misfits. A door opened at the far end of the chamber. She walked in without fear. Single human woman, dressed in a crisp blue uniform bearing the Earth Confederation emblem. No weapons, no guards. Her hair, streaked with dignified silver, was pulled into a tight bun. "Who is this?" barked the Solari. "Remove her at once," growled another, but the head counselor raised a hand. Curiosity flickered in his glowing form. "I am Patricia Hall," she said, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade of calm. "Ambassador of Earth." "You have no seat here," the head counselor intoned. "Not yet," she replied. "But we didn't come for permission." She walked to the center of the chamber and placed a small device on the pedestal. It hummed, projecting a rotating symbol Earth, surrounded by 12 unfamiliar sigils. "The symbol of the Galactic Confederation," she said. "Founded 3 days ago. 57 member worlds. All of them labeled primitive by this council. All of them once silenced." Gasps echoed through the room. Zikatar stood slowly. His eyes met hers across the hall. "You declare yourselves a rival to the council?" Patricia didn't blink. "We declare ourselves free. You spread chaos," the Solari delegate spat. "You weaken galactic order." "No," she said. "We strengthen it. You call what you've built order, but it is compliance under threat. Silence passed off as stability. Your idea of peace is stagnation. But peace is not the absence of noise. It is the presence of justice." The hall fell still. Zikatar stepped forward slowly. "You are bold, Ambassador Hall, but you do not understand what holds this galaxy together. Tradition, authority, legacy." She nodded. "All useful until they become cages." Then she raised her hand. A new signal pulsed from the device. Screens flared to life all around the chamber. Images of uprising. Lemurans, pushing council mining ships into the sea. Anthari vessels shimmering into the skies for the first time in 400 years. Nomad enclaves, broadcasting ancient forbiddens. Knowledge across open frequencies, and among them, flying overhead human vessels, black and defiant. "I came here to offer peace," Hall said. "But peace on new terms, a galaxy of equals. Where no species is told to wait until it's deemed worthy. Where knowledge is not hoarded behind protocol." "You will destroy us all," the Solari delegate hissed. "You will drown this galaxy in fire." Hall turned to him. Her eyes were steady. "No," she said. "We will awaken it." Across the galaxy, the ripple had already begun. On the hidden moon of Delphi 9, a joint Anthari-human lab produced the first open-source gravitational drive prototype. The design leaked in minutes, downloaded over 10 million times by scientists from dozens of suppressed civilizations. On the Nomad station of Arvis Hollow, a Veil Elder pressed a button that had not been touched in centuries. A beacon lit the void, not a call for war. A call for truth. On the oceans of Verile, Lemurans launched their first interstellar vessel. They named it Hope of the Depths. A human AI guided their navigation. A Scion memory core powered their reactor. And above all of this, the Defiant moved like a myth through the stars, carrying ambassadors, engineers, and warriors from 57 worlds. Its systems glowed with hybrid fire Anthari algorithms guiding Veil Nomad jump sequences wrapped in Scion camouflage, built on Terran hulls forged in secret. Alan Wright stood on the bridge, now promoted to admiral by his crew, not by decree, but by trust. He watched the stars pass. "Do you think they'll listen?" asked Samantha from behind him. "Some will," Alan said. "Others will fight. Power never goes quietly." "What about the ones still asleep?" she asked. "The ones afraid?" He turned to her and smiled. Then we wake them gently. Back in the council hall, Ambassador Zikatar stood alone after the chambers had cleared. He watched Earth's ambassador disappear into the transporter field, the symbol of the Confederation still pulsing on the pedestal. He had seen thousands of proposals in this chamber, treaties, mandates, threats, but never anything quite like this. They had expected fear. They had been given a movement, a spark. And Zikatar, for the first time in his long conditioned life, wasn't sure which side he was on anymore. The first Confederation warship wasn't built in a factory. It was built in a cave on Phorexis by 3 engineers using scrap hulls, stolen code, and a crystal shard passed hand to hand by rebels. The second one launched from beneath the polar ice cap of Verile, its reactor humming with Limaran biotech and human stabilizers. No fanfare, no flag. Just purpose. By the time the council realized what was happening, there were dozens. Black ships, sharp and strange, flying with signals the old systems didn't recognize. Confederation tags, broadcast in open defiance of registry codes. The council tried to jam them. The signals only grew louder. The galaxy was changing, and change didn't ask permission. On the bridge of the ISV Defiant, Admiral Alan Wright watched as those new ships joined formation across the stars. Vessels of different sizes, designs, species, but one thing united them. They had all once been told no. Now the answer was try and stop us. Transmission incoming, said Richard Hayes, eyes darting over his console. Encrypted. Origin Earth. Put it through, Alan said. The screen shimmered. Dr. William Jackson appeared, standing in the massive underground hangar complex beneath what had once been Denver. Behind him, more than 30 partially completed warships loomed in scaffolds. We finished the second fleet, Jackson said. Scan stealth drives, nomad jump cores, and modular docking for Anthari crystal cores. They're not elegant, but they'll fly, Alan smiled. They don't need to be elegant. Just free. We're already building the third wave, Jackson added. But the council started to hit our allies, skirmishes, raids. They're trying to make examples. Alan's face hardened. Then it's time to make our own. It started on the edge of the Saravan Drift. A patrol cruiser of the Council approached a known defector world, Caldrix Theta, population 20 million. The cruiser broadcast a message. All inhabitants will surrender known Confederation collaborators or face orbital enforcement. The people of Caldrix Theta responded with silence, because they didn't need to say anything. A black dot appeared on the patrol cruiser sensors. One ship, small, unfamiliar. Then another, and another. 10 minutes later, 33 Confederation vessels emerged from the darkness. They didn't open fire. They didn't broadcast threats. They just hovered. It was enough. The council ship powered down its weapons. Not out of diplomacy, but out of fear. The silence said what words couldn't. You're outnumbered and outclassed. In the council's central chamber, Ambassador Zikatar watched as panic seeped into old institutions. The Solari Directorate had withdrawn from open sessions, calling for emergency martial law across their sectors. Several of their border worlds had already switched allegiance, declaring loyalty to the Confederation in exchange for open knowledge access. The Calorian Union proposed negotiations. The Athexi Collective split in half, one side allying with Earth, the other demanding war. The council fractured like old stones struck by fresh thunder. We told ourselves this would never happen, murmured Zikatar in a closed meeting of remaining core members. That we had solved civilization, that stability was eternal. A voice spoke from the shadows. Patricia Hall. She had been invited not by permission, but because they knew ignoring her wouldn't help. There was never stability, she said. only stagnation and submission. The head counselor's glow dimmed. And what do you call this? These uprisings? These rebellions? This chaos you've unleashed? I call it birth, she answered. Meanwhile, in the Othran system, the Confederation made its boldest move yet. The Defiant, now accompanied by 4 Earth-built cruisers and 16 alien warships, approached the Council's Sector 14 command nexus, a military supply and intelligence outpost that had operated in secret for centuries. No signal was sent. The Confederation didn't warn. They appeared. In the control tower, alarms blared. The command staff tried to activate their shielding system, only to find it corrupt and infected by Anthari ghost code that rewrote protocols mid-function. A single command came through all council channels: evacuate, now, or be disarmed. The station's defense batteries turned to face outward and locked onto their own support ships. Confederation code had taken over. From the Defiance bridge, Alan watched as council vessels fled. Samantha spoke without turning. We took their secrets, made them better, and now we give them a choice. What choice? Asked Maria Collins, head of security. Alan stepped forward. Join us, or face irrelevance. A nexus surrendered without a single shot. Later, in a hidden chamber beneath the Confederation headquarters, an asteroid converted into a central relay node. 57 representatives gathered, some made of crystal, some of flesh, some pure thought, some song. They stood around a circular table and placed a single item before them: the Confederation Charter. It was not long. Only 3 principles. Knowledge is not a weapon to be hoarded. No world shall be silenced for being different. No species decides for another who is ready to rise. They each placed a hand, a beam, a tentacle, or a data imprint on the charter. It pulsed with light. The Confederation was no longer a rebellion. It was law. Back aboard the Defiant, Alan stood with Samantha on the upper deck as a new ship launched from the docking bay below, a Limaran-built hybrid cruiser, its hull glimmering with liquid metals, its drive glowing with sky and gravity fields. It's beautiful, Samantha said. It's proof, Alan replied. She looked at him. Of what? That we're no longer one ship in the dark. And far across the stars, thousands of beings, scholars, children, workers looked up into their skies as sleek black ships passed overhead and felt something no law had ever given them: belonging. The galaxy remembered how it began, with fire and distance, with tribes of stars bound not by choice but by gravity. And now, after 10,000 years of cold, silent obedience, it remembered something else: the sound of change. The Confederation Space Hub, now simply called Unity, hung in orbit above Earth like a wheel of purpose. It stretched more than 600 kilometers across, its spokes radiating with energy pulled from 10 different worlds. Ships came and went constantly, from crystal-hulled Anthari transports to Scan, ring vessels that folded dimensions instead of flying through them. What had once been a backwater world, pitied and mocked by the Galactic Council, was now the center of something new. Admiral Alan Wright stood at the viewing deck of Unity's upper ring, watching the flow of traffic, arms folded behind his back. His once dark hair had gone white, and a thin scar marked the right side of his temple, a reminder of the battle over Firaxis, belt where the Defiant had jumped straight into the path of a Council doomsday cruiser. They'd won, but not without cost. Behind him, footsteps echoed. Samantha Foster entered, now Director of Confederation Engineering. She carried a datapad filled with launch schedules, integration reports, and the last phase of the Ascension Protocol, Earth's first intergalactic gate array. But her eyes were only on him. "You're not ready to let go, are you?" she said softly. Alan didn't turn. "I built this from fire and betrayal, Sam, and now they want to name schools after me." She smiled gently. They named one already. On Vale's Reach, the kids there learn 3 languages by age 7. One of them is English. He exhaled a slow breath. You ever think we'd get here? She walked beside him, standing at the glass. Not this fast. Not with this many. And not with the council still breathing down our necks. He raised an eyebrow. Still breathing? Samantha tapped her pad. A holo display blinked on. A council were Fleet 7 cruisers. 12 support vessels was moving toward the outer edges of Confederation space. Their engines ran hot. Their signals encrypted, but the Confederation was watching now. And ready. New Solari leadership, Samantha said. Hardliners. They don't want peace. They want legacy. Alan's jaw tightened. Do they know what they're walking into? Unclear. Another tap. The screen changed. It showed Project Meridian, a fleet of autonomous Confederation-built Sentinels, powered by Scion drive logic and Inthari reaction matrices. They weren't warships in the traditional sense. They were warnings. They'll have to decide, Samantha said. Do they want to be part of the future or part of the next museum exhibit? Alan nodded slowly. Let the fleet deploy. But don't fire unless fired upon, Samantha hesitated. Even if they bring the full council remnant? Especially then, Alan said. The moment we become them, we lose everything. The decision came 3 days later. Council warships crossed the boundary line of Confederation territory near the Acheron Expanse. Confederation sentinels moved to intercept, weapons not charged, but shields shimmering. A signal crackled across both channels. It wasn't from the SALARI. It was from Zikatar, the Vidian. Ambassador appeared on every major Confederation screen. His once stern eyes now weighted with something older than time, humility. This is Zikatar of the Vidian line, he said. Former voice of the Galactic Council, current representative of the Vidian peoples, and friend to the Earth Confederation. The Council cruisers held their position. Zikatar continued. For millennia, we believed that order required control. That peace could only exist when voices were quiet, when futures were chosen for you. He looked directly into the lens. But then the humans came, and they did something we never expected. They listened, even while they fought. They built bridges where we built chains. They shared what we hoarded. And they believed that being different didn't make you dangerous, it made you necessary. The cruisers began to pull back. The war is over. The council has ended. What remains is memory. Let it not be shame. The screen went dark. And across the Confederation, a collective breath was held. Then released. There would be no war today. Weeks later, on Earth's surface, at what had once been the ruins of Geneva, the final ceremony began. A vast amphitheater had been carved into the hillside, part ancient rock, part crystal grown from Inthari seed clusters. Flags of all Confederation species hung in a spiral above. Swaying in artificial gravity wind. Alan stood on the central stage alongside Samantha, Patricia Hall, Zikatar, and leaders from over 200 worlds. Lisa Foster stood nearby, representing the next generation, Earth's firstborn child trained in gravity-adaptive thought, fluent in 6 alien dialects, and destined to captain the next Defiant-class explorer. A single artifact sat at the center of the stage. The original flight key of the ISV Defiant. Alan stepped forward, eyes scanning the crowd. No longer soldiers, no longer rebels. These were builders, dreamers, survivors of regimes that had told them, wait your turn, for far too long. I was once asked, he began, how one ship could change a galaxy. He paused. It didn't. Not alone. But it reminded us of what we'd forgotten, that the galaxy belongs to those who reach for it, not to those who try to hold it still. He looked down at the key, then lifted it. We didn't fight the council to destroy something. We fought to build something better. Cheers rang out. Zikatar stepped forward next. When he spoke, his voice no longer wavered between music and command. It simply belonged. "Let this Confederation not be a throne," he said. "Let it be a table." That night, the stars were clearer than they had been in generations. A new Defiant launched from the Earth orbital ring sleek, refined, no longer made of stolen parts, but forged with collaboration. Lisa Foster sat at the helm. She turned to her crew and Thari, Skan, Veil nomads, and human cadets, and smiled. "Ready to write the next chapter?" They all nodded. The ship turned slowly toward the dark, unknown arm of the galaxy. "Then let's do what humans do best," she said. "Let's go where we're not invited." The new Defiant vanished into a blink of light. And somewhere, in the deep, a quiet voice whispered half memory, half prophecy. "They laughed when humans sent one ship. They're not laughing anymore."